Welcome to MOOBY Fight, something that might be hosted by Kevin Smith, but this time it's our fan version, and we've got our fighters Mark, the Lamb of Buddy Christ, Morgan Bluestein, who at 15 years old has already interviewed Kevin Smith twice, 3 times maybe? How many times? And is also the bona fide star of the 4:30 movie. Don't fact check that. But we've also got in the corner, Bradley Cooper's trivia, this time taking a little bit of a lane change and being Bradley Cooper's fact-checking. Fun facts about our rounds. He'll add stuff. He'll give some opinions whenever Milan wants it. And he's been the keeper of secrets, all our answers to make it fair. And speaking of Milan, she will be the queen of the arena, raining down judgment like him, the guy in Gladiator, giving the thumbs up or thumbs down, deciding how this will go based on our arguments. She's also just the greatest person who knows that adrenaline or adventure, excitement, a Jedi craves not these things is not a Yoda quote. It's a quote from Kevin Smith, who, so that I know that he gets this, she finds just a sexy rumble. And then there's, and also shout out to Will, who helped with the speed round questions. And then there's me, who's been a fan of Kevin Smith since Clerks 2, the kind of fan who would drop everything and drive to New Jersey for the Clerks 3 original script reading, drop everything to go to the LA premiere, where I also met Will, and then, or who would be an idiot to watch Clerks 3 17 times in theaters. MOOBY Fights was just a weird dream, I said in the Discord once. And then thanks to Chris McGinty, who will be shouting out, chrismag.com, who designed this, made it a reality. Because I think if Milan and Brad have seen my design skills, never would have even thought to ask if it would have been up to me. But never been good, just lucky. And even though I know for a fact Mark and Morgan are going to dust me, I just feel like I've won because you're all great, and I'm glad here. And I'm definitely not throwing so many compliments to Milan to get her to be biased, because I know it wouldn't work. She has integrity. That's why I asked her to be judge. And since all the arguments are based on the arguments, I know she'll do a great job. Milan, it's your turn to be maestro of this little arena.
All right. Are we jumping into round one?
All right, then Milan, just say cue the fight, or let's fight. I don't know.
We're going to cue the let's fight, right? Is that what we're doing? We're cueing it?
Yes.
All right. So let's fight. Round one. Are you all ready? I'm pretty excited.
After this.
I swear to God, I will beat the shit out of you.
I have never been so attracted to a man in my life. No ticket.
People don't think of Kevin Smith as an action director, but that's only half the clips I had available to me. All right, back to you, Milan.
I feel like next time I need a warning that there's going to be an intro video. I think I got that warning. Brian.
It was in the outline.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with round one. What is the best Kevin Smith movie? And I believe we're going to be starting off with player number one, Mark.
Okay, for best movie, I had to pick something that I love. It's one of my favorite films, obviously. It's underrated for Kevin, but I seriously think it's his best movie. Red State. Red State goes outside of the box of everything you classify and think of as a Kevin Smith film. You have politics. You have ties to the real world with everything going on. Through that film, he made connections and even made Megan Phelps leave the church, which part of the film was founded on. And last but not least in that film, look at the performance you have. Michael Parks and John Goodman. And honestly, Parks, you can't go wrong, and that is one of the highlighting roles and performances of his career. I mean, that is the film. That is such a great film that even though Kevin couldn't do his original intended ending, through YouTube, they animated so we could even see what his original vision was. I mean, that is the best Kevin Smith film.
All right. For me, I took a bit of a different angle. I went so happy that Red State's showing up, but I went for the movie that affected me the most consistently and for the longest, which was what Rosario Dawson described as a perfect melding of the first two, and that is Clerks 3. Morgan?
For my pick, I went with Mallrats, which is somewhat of a basic answer, but the reason I liked it so much is just because watching it people were talking about comic books for once, and I had never seen that, and nobody my age, for whatever reason, liked comic books. So I felt like I was watching people that I could relate to, and it was just like, and it was funny, and all around for me, it was a perfect movie, and it's my go-to movie for when I'm having a bad day. It's just to watch Mallrats, and it cheers me up.
Fair enough. All right. Now it's free for all. Everybody jump in as you do. But I'll say for Mark, first watch on Red State, that middle, the speech, while Mike, he's very talented, the speech felt a little bit long. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of everything's about to happen and then cut to 2 minutes of explaining why it ends. I think I've seen that in certain Coen Brothers films. Not really my favorite. And everybody can interrupt me. I don't want to just take the mic. But not the biggest fan of that. And I know what your original ending is, but that he said, which was that the actual apocalypse happened, but he chose not to do that. He had the choice to go one way or go the other, and he chose let's talk and wrap this up, say that it was a prank. I love that it was against the whatever that church is. Who cares about name dropping them? They're horrible bigots. And I love that it affected somebody to change their life and get out of that. But, just certain things. Great turn. I think he did a great job making an action film. Morgan, love Mallrats. Don't love the poorly written one-dimensional female characters who suddenly realize that their horrible boyfriends are actually the best they can do right at the end. Solid film, solid jokes, solid antics. I love, where's the sailboat? But just certain things, and you know that I'm going to have to say this. The fact that a New York Times best-selling book for over 21 weeks is literally my story being statutorily raped by so many people. Just it just makes me want to scream internally.
I think, but doing that with that, like showing that, it showed how messed up some people in America are, that so many people bought that to read it, to keep it at a New York Times bestseller for 21 weeks.
Fair enough. I mean, a great way to knock down Ben Affleck's character and get him thrown out. But then, this was not framed as a judgment on people, as a commentary on our consumption of media. It was played as, this is, for lack of a better term, this is her happy ending. And it was played all normal and less of a commentary as Red State was.
Well, and part of the problem with that film is the majority of the characters are standalone to that film. You have, of course,
you have the Hicks cousin
characters reappear. Chasing Amy, those characters, Banky and Holden, appear in multiple films. Those characters have the same actors playing them, but they're standalone to that. So it's another film that's meant to be in this universe, but doesn't really branch beyond that at this point.
Makes references to Clerks, but it almost ended Kevin's career.
It did. It did, and it's sad. I mean, it's a smart choice. I mean, that was my first Kevin Smith film, but I think it's a good film. I don't find it as one of his best.
What were you going to say, Morgan?
I think as far as they haven't the characters and stuff haven't like shown up as much. I mean, Brody has still shown up a couple times as, I mean, quick cameos, but he's shown up. I mean, TS hasn't shown up, but I think that if you've read the Quick Stops comic books too, it also gives a little bit of insight on, it delves more into the characters and the relationships of that Mallrats and how it connects more to the Esk universe.
And honestly, personally, I don't find it negative that they don't show up quite as much. But yet, like one running joke was how to show Joey Lauren Adams naked every time, and then at a certain point, she's just like, might as well make it easier for the guy, which kind of sends a message of just acquiesce to peeping toms. Start changing out in the public because they'll find you anyway, or they might. So you might as well help some, because within the world of the movie, it's always an accident, even though obviously he wrote it and directed it, but it's framed as an accident. And then she's just like, but she thinks it's intentional. She's like, well, might as well help the guy, which in one way you could say is like her just claiming her own trauma, which isn't good either.
Clerks 3.
Damn it. I was hoping you guys...
No.
I was keeping quiet.
Film. It is one of my top tier films. It has several flaws in it that would keep me from making it my top. I look at the whole Elias character. While I enjoy the role he takes, and I don't think any of us can't go, we are but thieves, and get a kick out of it. Or, I don't deserve lube. That pops to mind. I think as a whole, it was such a sharp turn, and they put so much focus on it that pulls from the Dante story, from the story of Dante and Randall and what they're trying to impose. It puts a little, almost too much focus on him and how he's taking this path, and away from their relationship and how the movies show their history, their love through the years. It almost puts him front and center instead of being the side character that he is intended to be.
I mean, he's part of the crew. I do love where it came from, even if the costuming didn't work the most for me. It didn't teeter over the edge, but that came out of him asking if he could wear a cape. And then Kevin's talked about how Elias has always been has been bad at religion, as we saw in Clerks 2. So when he went over to Satanism, he would do it poorly. He wouldn't actually be evil. He would just think it was cool costumes. And as far as pulling away from Dante, Elias in the hospital at the end of the movie, he is crucial to that. He lays out Randall, just rips him to shreds, being like, are you kidding me? Dante put his half of the stake of the Quick Stop at risk. He went above and beyond for you. He's been bending over backwards, taking sleepless nights, just putting himself second to you. So I would actually say, even if it distracts for the first and second act, he is crucial to just knocking Randall in the side of the head and helping bring them back together and delivering on Dante's story and his ultimate third act climax. I feel bad for potentially having to spoil this for Milan because she hasn't seen it yet. But, so I'm a little coy. But he's essentially, he's going to be there. He's continuing the legacy of the Quick Stops, the Quick Stop. But yeah, I would disagree that he's distracting from it. He's him and what's his name?
Blockchain.
The next time.
You can't even remember. You can't even remember the character's name of your favorite Kevin Smith movie.
Great point.
I mean,
best because of.
Okay, I do have a question.
Yeah,
because I just to where I can make sure I'm getting on the same page, because I hear like these three recurring areas. Like we're talking about characters, we're talking about story, and we're talking about impact. Mm-hmm. Can y'all each kind of clarify those three areas for the stories that the movies that you're saying are the best?
All right, so for impact, for me, it was the emotional impact, like at the premiere, and literally like 6 other times afterwards, which I've never had with a movie. I was buckets of tears, just 5 to 7 times. There was Rosario Dawson's character. We find out she's passed away in the opening song, which is the March for the Black Parade, or Welcome to the Black Parade, and he has Dante has dream sequences with her where he's mourning the loss of her and his child, and is so affecting. And then at the end, they have a huge blow up between Dante and Randall, which is also affecting. And right when Randall shows him the recut edit of the film, which he wouldn't have done without Elias, Dante gets to see his whole life flash before his eyes with flashbacks to the first two films, actual footage from that, not from the film that they shot during Clerks 3. And he goes out and he watches it with Becky, with his his deceased wife, and then he goes off to heaven as he flatlines. So it is this beautiful, just wrapping up of the trilogy, all the way back to it being a black and white, and also kind of works as behind the scenes because they recreate actual moments from that were real on Clerks 1, like Jason Mewes being nervous to dance in front of everybody outside the quick stop, which is an iconic, I think Mark and Morgan, you can both speak to this as an iconic moment from Clerks 1. So that's what it was for me. It was just all, like, what I've loved about Kevin is his heart. Those are my favorite parts of his movies. Zack and Mary Make a Porno has huge heart, whereas it might be to say that with that title. Clerks 2 has huge heart, and Clerks 3 delivers the most for me.
Along those lines, to those points, Red State, for me, as you're discussing this, one of the things that it hits it up with one of the near last lines, it's scary when people feel entitled, but even more scary for them just to believe. Red State hits on, it's even without the Westboro Baptist Church being the force that they were when the movie was made. Now we are still in an age where religious entitlement and power for people when they believe is a scary thing. The movie talks about how, because of their beliefs, they were going after homosexuals, they were going after adulterers, they were going after anyone who didn't fit into their mold. And that's exactly what happens in the world today. You have the hatred, you have the power, and you have people who are outright nuts killing for it. And Kevin's decided, hey, I'm going to put this in a film. I'm going to show what everyone's thinking and feeling inside and try to make it a little entertainment, but it's a true mark on what was going on then and what's still happening today in our world. It happens daily. There are people who are afraid to go outside and be themselves because of what the religious groups and people around them believe and act upon those thoughts. And I mean, that to me is why that movie is one of his best films. It's not a comedy per se. Doesn't fit in his mold. It's not one of those movies that's just set out to, as Kevin likes to put, dick and fart jokes. He's great at that. He's one of the best. That's why we're having these fights. But that film, he got to say what he was thinking, put his heart into it, and truly have an outcome that he believed in, but show it from the stance of how things were going on. And you won't find it to that point in many of his other films. He shies away from politics. He tries not to, because he tries to entertain. This film has all that, and it still delivers.
And I'll throw this in really quickly since you're about to talk, Morgan, so you can lampoon it if you want. But in my defense, Blockchain never says his name.
All right, sorry. So, I forgot that you guys weren't in a movie with the actor. Sorry, my bad.
Oh,
my bad.
Mic drop.
Fame has gone straight to your head, young sir.
In my opinion, Mallrats is the best Kevin Smith movie because it talks about just like it's what Kevin loves. Like, he loves comic books, he loves superheroes, and like there weren't superhero movies then. The world didn't really catch up to like, oh yeah, we like superheroes, so Marvel started putting out all the movies, Iron Man, X-Men, all of them. Then everyone was like, oh yeah, superheroes, that's cool. But then it was like you like superheroes and you're 20? They're like, yeah, no, that's not cool. And he just was like, well, I mean, I don't care, I'm gonna make this movie. And he made it, and it completely bombed. Nobody liked it, and pretty much everyone was saying he went from having one of the best movies to just completely his career was over. And then, in early 2000s, everyone was like, oh, this is actually kind of a good movie. And all of a sudden it became like, everyone was like, oh yeah, Mallrats is a great movie. But you have some amazing actors. You have Michael Roker, you have Jason
Ben
Lee,
Affleck.
Ben Affleck,
Mhm.
and it's actors before they were like really like famous. Like most people, when they think of Michael Roker, they think, oh, Walking Dead or Yondu. They think Ben Affleck, they think Batman or being married to J Lo. But you know, Jason Lee, most people, at least my age, think Alvin and the Chipmunks. But it's a lot more. It shows them in a different like, oh yeah, these guys are actually like actors. And then also, he wanted to cast his friends. He wanted to cast Jason Mewes as Jay, and Universal was like, no, I don't think we're gonna do that. Let's not. And he's like, but he already played Jay in Clerks, and they're like, well, he's gonna have to audition. So they made him audition for the role he had already played. Obviously, he still got it, but it was just like, even through trials and tribulations, he still persevered and pushed through to make the movie he wanted. And even after it bombing, he still went and made movies, and people ended up being like, oh yeah, it's good. But he just kind of disowned it after it. But it's one of my favorites because of that.
And just a quick mark against the comment about superhero movies. I mean, like Burton's Batman had already shown up twice. That was not a like new thing, but also I'm shocked you didn't mention Stan Lee as the cameos.
If I'm correct.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Mark?
I think that's to you, Mark.
Oh, I think that was one of Stan Lee's first cameos.
Yeah, no, it was. And also, if you have seen Captain Marvel, he's reading the Mallrats script on the bus. And, compared to all the other Stan Lee cameos, it's the funniest because after, obviously, he walks away from talking to Brody, he goes to TS, he's like, oh yeah, he totally bought it. And he didn't even realize it was straight from a comic book. Which is what's funny is he used a story from one of his own comic books on a comic nerd, and the comic nerd didn't even realize it. And Stan Lee, then everyone was like, "Who is Stan Lee? Like, why is this important?" Like, they didn't get it. But watching it, if somebody watched it today that hadn't seen it before, they'd be like, "Oh, Stan Lee, that's the guy that's in all the Marvel movies." And they would think, oh, this is just like, they did it because of that. Like, they didn't know, back then nobody was like, reviewers weren't like, Stan Lee's in this movie. They were like, nobody gives a fuck. Like, this doesn't
Mine
matter.
is. I think just looking at the time, we should probably wrap up this round. But if you all have any closing arguments, I think I'm satisfied with mine.
I'm great with mine. So.
I'm good.
All right, here's for Milan and Brad.
Brad, do you have anything that you want to add?
A couple things. We talked about Michael Parks, talking about his major role in Red State. Need we forget he was in Dusk Till Dawn, and then reprised his role as Texas Ranger Earl McGraw in Kill Bill Volume 1, and then came back in Kill Bill Volume 2 as Esteban. Can't forget about that. I don't know if that might trump his Red State. We're talking about not knowing Blockchain's name in Clerks 3. Dante's name, or Jason Mewes couldn't remember Dante's name, or Jay couldn't remember Dante's name and always called him by a different name. In Clerks 3, I think he called him Sergio. And then we were also talking about Jason Mewes for Mallrats having to re-audition. One of the people that were in the front runners for his job was Seth Green. And there was another guy who was on TV. Some other TV show was the other one, but Seth Green was the major front runner for that.
If I can, random knowledge, Seth actually was on set, standing to the side while Jay did his lines.
And it was all the scenes with the backdrop of when they were doing the competition at the end. Those were the scenes that he had to film. It was like day 3 or day 4 on being on set. Filmed all those, and then Kevin had to send that audition tape off to the executives, and the executives gave in.
Very nice.
All right. So
you can ask Brad's thoughts on the round as well if you need someone to bounce off stuff.
No, I feel like for this round, I'm good, but I'm anticipating that it's going to get just harder and harder as we progress. Because with this one, I feel like when we're talking about like the best film, we're looking at not only like the audience enjoyment, but like longevity of it too, and the impact that the film itself has. So when looking at or when listening to the 3 arguments, I wasn't hearing a lot of compelling arguments for like the longevity of audience entertainment and just its like reach when it comes to Mallrats. And I think a lot of it was because of some of the arguments that Brian brought up when it comes to some of the issues with character development and things like that. But I do see quite a bit of longevity both for Clerks 3 and for Red State. And I think the big thing that really made them stand apart is when you think about like which film is probably going to still be around 50 years from now and potentially going to be used as examples for something and still be enjoyable in that time period. It's probably going to be Red State. Like that one is going to be impactful in a way that's like historically relevant. So I feel like that's going to end up having more longevity. When you're talking about like films that I think creators and directors feel most passionate about, it does tend to be those where they're getting that opportunity to really talk about their beliefs and kind of like where they feel they stand in the world. And I do kind of see that in Mark's arguments when it comes to Red State. So I'm going to have to give the point for this first round to Mark.
Damn it. I love that it's based on the arguments because technically, no, I don't think anybody even talks about Red State regularly.
No. I love it. And I'll be honest now, Clerks 3 is one of my all-time favorites just because I recently had open heart surgery. So to me, it hit just with what I'd went through and everything. Yeah. So I enjoy that these were the 3 films, though. I mean, my first film, my last film, and my all together. I mean, they're my top 3. So we all I think we chose very well.
You, Brad, and my daughter all have had heart surgery. All right, Bergen.
I knew that was going to be my weakest round. That was the round that I couldn't, it was hard to pick 4. All the other ones came to me immediately. I had no problem. And one of them, of course, I ended up having the same answer as somebody else. So luckily I had 2 choices on one of those. So I was okay with that one. But
it's a good film.
This one I knew was going to be a little tough. And as soon as Mark said Red State, that was literally my second choice. But I was like, I think I'm going to go Mallrats just because that was like affected me more. But I knew Red State. As soon as you said that, I was like, all right, then. That's already going to win the point.
Well, congrats, Mark.
Okay. Congratulations. All right. Are we ready for round 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
Remake a popular classic film with Kevin Smith writing and directing.
All right. So I like the points you made about Red State because I just rewatched Dogma. I thought one of you has chosen Dogma for the first one. And one thing that I believe Loki says is that we've destroyed the planet, which I think that came out in, Brad, you can fact check when Dogma came out. I think it was 1999, something like that. The fact that he was talking about that then and about and commenting on religion and the negatives of religion and everything, and then he made that more front and center for Red State, or at least repeated it, kind of ties into why I chose They Live, because when I watched They Live in theaters, I honestly got pissed off. I was like, motherfucker, we've been having these conversations since They Live was around and we haven't done jack shit. We haven't evolved at all. So I wanted Kevin to remake that to make it even less subtext. And I don't think They Live is very subtexty, but if we haven't finished it or figured it out by now, I want him to redo it and just make it more in people's faces. And so basically he would do with Red State what or how Dogma relates to Red State, I would want the old They Live to relate to his new They Live. That's it for me. They Live. Morgan?
For my pick, I picked a 1980s classic, Flash Gordon,
Okay.
because obviously Kevin is a big superhero fan, and I know he's also a fan of Flash Gordon. And Flash Gordon's kind of like Star Wars, but a lot more campy and just like over the top. And I think it would just be, if Kevin did it, it would be absolutely up his alley, where it has some kind of serious parts, but not super serious, and it doesn't take itself literally. And it's just like an all around like comedy. And I think it's just him doing a space movie / superhero movie would be just like absolutely amazing, since he's already written comics that he co-wrote the Batman 66 meets the Green Hornet comics, which is another campy take on a super classic superhero. And he wrote those very well, and I think it would perfectly transition over to Flash Gordon.
Oh, yeah, it's
your
your
turn now, Mark.
All right. Well, Morgan, in case you're wondering, I'm the one that picked your other choice. So it's crazy to me, just stating that out of all the films we had to choose from, classic films, anything pre-2000, that two of us picked the same film. That alone speaks to the validity that maybe something Kevin should do. And I chose The Breakfast Club. When you look, first off, Kevin is very big on John Landis films. He has a love and appreciation for those. I mean, he has Jay and Silent Bob looking for Shermer, Illinois to find the people from those realms. But you go into The Breakfast Club. What is The Breakfast Club? It's a group of high school misfits who fit into the different roles of your stereotypical high schoolers in one room for the majority of the film, having long conversations. What is Kevin's bread and butter? What did he start out doing with Clerks? It was people who fit into these roles, two roles to start out with. He adds Elias, another character type in Clerks 2, in one main setting, having long, drawn-out conversations. You find out more about the people. You find out who they really are. And then you are watching people go back and forth like we do as friends. This film would be a perfect film for Kevin to do.
You said John Landis. Did you mean John Hughes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I was just fact checking that too. I was like, when he said it, I was thinking, I'm like,
yeah. The second I said it, I go, oh crap.
I was like, I must be missing something.
I'm really excited to hear these arguments. But for me, as y'all are going into your arguments, I really want to get an idea of like what differences do you expect would happen, and why is that so significant if he were to direct and like kind of rule over this new film.
All right, so I like your choice, Morgan, but I think you chose the wrong director, because even in the movie Ted, Seth MacFarlane did a really great recreation of Flash Gordon, and I think he would have a lot better or he would get it. Like, he's done action in films and it's worked, and I think honestly it'd be Kevin Smith, the first one to say no thank you. He said he doesn't want to direct superhero films because he wouldn't do a good job. His action scenes, when they're edited together, they're not the best, even if they get the job done. Like, even on Masters of the Universe, he was nervous about that, and the creative directors at the animators said, all you need to write is fighty, and we'll make it look great. As far as Mark, that is such a good, for both of you choosing that, like, that's such a good film. I don't think anyone would do a good job remaking that. I think it would be a negative no matter what. So, I mean, people already hate on Kevin enough. Even fans, when Clerks 3 came out, hated him because they didn't have Randall saying some sexist, racist, weird, crazy shit. Like, then you're going to have everybody, probably including Kevin Smith, saying this is shit, no matter, like, in some degree compared to the original. Like, that'd be like saying remaking The Godfather Part 2. It's just like we've struck something that's so beautiful and perfect. I think it'd just be a hard like sell to say that anybody should remake it. The reason why I said They Live is because when I watch it, it's already kind of Kevin Smithy, where it's kind of disjointed in the structure. It's not a perfect structure. I think
so is Breakfast Club. And I'm not trying to like argue for Mark, but it was my first choice too. So I can't argue against Mark's choice by
you can. No, there are negative reasons.
We had the same thought, so I thought the exact same thing. His entire idea was what I would have said too. But
I'm just gonna say, Morgan, from all the movie fights I've seen, if you take that stance, that's gonna knock you out. You got to put it try, please. I don't want you to like even as good as an argument as you can. If you don't take down Mark, that can go against you. I'm not saying that that's what Milan's going to do.
I mean, you're saying all of that, but you still haven't given me an argument yet for why They Live is a good one. You just said a lot of negative stuff that doesn't matter to me about the other films. So I don't know if you're giving the best advice right now.
They Live is because he has sent or had messages in films like Red State, like Dogma, and he's delivered on those. And They Live already feels like it's structured like a Kevin Smith film. It's not too perfectly done or well oiled like all the blockbusters anyway. So we can get into that and just have it be more of at least repeat it, like get people to actually listen to the message of the film, apparently, since we haven't learned anything, and have an opportunity for just an updated version of that. Like, hey, these aren't just problems from the 70s or 80s or whenever They Live came out. These are issues that are still continuing, still going on, and we've learned nothing. There could even be a meta aspect of They Live being a remake where the original They Live is in the movie. That would be something that Kevin Smith would do great with, having it a meta commentary of saying, like, look, we not only do these glasses show us the truth, we've got stuff that's already telling us the truth and we're not listening. So it could take a meta commentary about how we know all this. We know all this, but we're not acting on it. We're not learning these lessons, and just things keep getting worse. Like, we know that stuff's wrong and we're not taking the action. Hell, I had so much respect for Hong Kong when they protested for so long when China was trying to encroach on their legal system. They protested for weeks. Every other country that I see protests about, they last weeks, months. Us, maybe a week. And if it goes long enough, like Black Lives Matter during the pandemic, it gets broken up and then it almost fizzles out. And like, we made a little bit of progress, but we don't actually solve the issues. And then that one step forward turns into, with time, 5 steps back. So that's why I think he'd be a perfect addition or person to remake that.
With They Live, we've seen, he's done movies like that. He's done Red State, he's done Dogma. Both of those movies that you named are some of the biggest movies that he got negative feedback on, and that people just didn't end up really liking. I like them, but lots of people didn't end up liking them.
Dude, people are still mad that Dogma's not publicly available.
I'm not saying
that's just not true.
I'm not saying there's not people, but I mean, both of those movies, he got death threats on his life.
And he still came back to the well with Red State. He wasn't afraid.
I'm not saying he didn't, but They Live would almost just be a repeat of what he was kind of going for with Red State. I mean, it would be more of a comedy, campy take on it. Red State was more obviously horror and action than it was either of those.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be all comedy, because he did do Red State. He does do a more serious one. And like, except for the most loyal Elon Musk fans who are still on X paying for a blue check mark, you're not going to get as much fervor or anger of an anti-capitalism movie as you would an anti-religion. People go to war for religion. People, when they go to war for capitalism, much more subtle. They have to use some other excuse to go to war for that.
But which would you rather see? Would you rather see Kevin remake, as you said, a not so bad film, not great, but not so bad film as you do in They Live, or would you rather see him do as they've been doing with? Look, they remade Roadhouse. Everything that was popular, that was a great film, they're remaking. Kevin being a fan and having that love for it, and it following his structure. People sitting around talking, having real conversations about who they are, and kidding around, developing those friendships. Would you rather see someone who has that love and appreciation put his spin on it and develop it further for the current market, or do something that was so back then and will be so accepted now?
You seem to be arguing for the Bob Igers of the world. I don't want a poor Xerox. I want something that can be improved upon, or at least, be of the same quality. I don't want it being tarnished. That would be like remaking The Breakfast Club would be like remaking Footloose. The remake of the Footloose, thankfully, everyone's already forgotten that. That was mediocre, not great. I forget the film you just said as the Roadhouse. That movie was so weird. It had so much promise to be such a campy horror, like so bad it's good, and then it just switched gears into this like serial killer shit. It felt like Jake Gyllenhaal just went into like Nightcrawler and just went, oh, I'm gonna forget the movie I'm in. I'm gonna start killing people and let them drown in pools. I don't want a bad Xerox of an old film. I want something that can either be the same quality or improved. And I don't think anyone do you think he could make as good a Breakfast Club, or just put his spin on it?
Honestly, I would like to see his try at it, because anytime you're going for a reboot, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, look at Reboot itself. He takes the theme that's out there and he redoes it, puts a little newer spin. I'd like to see Kevin's take on it. I think it would be great. We do have bad reboots. We do have good ones. The question is, are we wanting to see an actual remake of the film, or are we wanting to see a new film based on that? That's two different subjects. What you're describing with They Live is a new film based on that.
I'd like the court to note he didn't say he thinks it would be as good or better. He expertly dodged that part.
Until he makes it, we'll never know.
Okay, let's talk about Flash Gordon really quick, though, because we haven't touched as much on Flash Gordon.
Brian, you said that you brought up Masters of the Universe, which was very good. Glad you brought that up, and that's another, I wouldn't say Flash Gordon is as much of an 80s icon as He-Man is, but it's another 80s superhero. And while some people hated Masters of the Universe, there was plenty of good feedback on it. And for every good movie that has good reviews, there's 10 bad reviews. So not everyone's going to love it. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But I think he would take it in the right direction, as he did Masters of the Universe, in my opinion at least. He took Masters of the Universe into the right direction it was supposed to go. And I think also with who Kevin is, he wouldn't make the female characters in Flash Gordon as much of just like, oh, these are women, we like girls. Like, oh, look at them, they're
That's
females. He and just like he did in Masters of the Universe, he kind of made the female more of a character, more of a hero than she was in the original series. And I think he could do the same in Flash Gordon and still focus on Flash Gordon like he did He-Man, but make it more gender neutral and more equalitative.
Well, just remember with your reference of using He-Man was written by many people other than Kevin. He was the showrunner, had the idea, but let them do all the work. And we've seen what happened when Kevin directs and does things that's not his. I mean, while we may all say, yes, we like Cop-Out, you want to talk about something universally panned and hated.
And if we were just saying writing, like, yes, because He-Man, as far as I know, at least with the animation director saying that he could just write fighty, like that person storyboarded, animated, choreographed everything. If we were just talking about writing, I'd be much more inclined to be like, hell yeah, we got writer Kevin Smith, director Seth MacFarlane, let's go. But like even in Dogma, which I like, just just, yeah, those action scenes don't come together well. And with it being so technically challenging, I would assume with either painted backgrounds or green screen backgrounds, whatever they went with, like, I think writing and directing, with it being such a fantastical visual medium there, like, just to put shots against the thing I chose last round, Clerks 3, unfortunately, in color, very ugly. Just color wise, like, not so, like, you're asking him to become James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think he'd be the first one to say that's not me. I need James Gunn directing and maybe me writing or as co-writing, but
I totally agree with you as the look and how it would look, but I think as he's talked about Flash Gordon several times, and I know he is a fan because I've asked him about it. I think he knows the way it would. He knows the film enough and the reason people like it enough that he wouldn't try and mess it up. Obviously, do I think he would make a remake or slash reboot of The Breakfast Club? No, I think he would turn it down. Do I think he would make a reboot slash remake of They Live? No, I think he would turn it down. Because all the films we mentioned are all classics in their own rights that I feel like Kevin as himself, he doesn't want to mess up films like that. So, but if he did say yes, I think out of all of these, Flash Gordon would be, obviously my first choice was Stolen by Mark. Thank you very much. So I can't really give my full opinion as to why I would pick Flash Gordon, but it was my backup, and I think even though the art style wouldn't be as good as it was in other Kevin Smith movies, this may be an unfair advantage. The look and colors of the 4:30 movie as a movie that is in the 80s, it's pretty colorful. I think Kevin can do it, and it's possible for him to do it, and it still be good.
Fair enough. Sorry to direct a little bit, but Brad, if we start getting 10 minutes and just start messing a lot or something to wrap us up,
Lord, yeah.
I'm just going to start closing arguments. What does I say? Okay, so They Live, I don't think it's as classic as the other two, because the main thing that people know it for is I came here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. And that was an improv, relatively speaking, by the actor, because they didn't have that in there. I think if Kevin Smith wrote it, there'd be a lot more quotable stuff from that movie, because I don't think there's anything else that's really quotable from that movie. Maybe the GIF, like a GIF of them putting on the glasses and seeing all the messaging underneath it. So I just want to, I think it would be very valuable today for an audience today to at least incite that conversation, because I didn't see anybody mentioning it after it came back in theaters, and there were barely anybody in the theater with me. I think 2 people. So it really doesn't have that staying power. I think there'd be a lot more people for Breakfast Club. I don't know if Flash Gordon, but I bet there'd be a lot of like older people who'd be like, ooh, yeah, let's see it in Dolby. They Live, I was basically alone.
I mean, I can tell you because I have seen Flash Gordon in theaters as a screening. There was a good amount of people, so I think there would be a good enough turnout. But also, John Carpenter directed They Live. It's not a director that we don't know by full name / first name. We talk about Breakfast Club. Nobody just says, "Oh yeah, John directed that." Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, John Hughes." And you talk
Some say John Landis.
Yes, they say that too.
And I would argue that nobody being in my theater almost is a point towards me. Like, it doesn't have as faithful of a fan base.
Well, let's go back to the question at hand. The original question was, name what was the word that you used? What kind of film?
Remake a popular classic film with Kevin Smith writing and directing.
You just admitted to us all that They Live isn't.
It is
a classic. If you're going to
a classic film, but it's one that people won't be as mad at.
I said classic. I said I think these are classic films, and you said Well, They Live isn't as.
I'm just saying less people will be mad about it. It's still a popular classic film that has a legacy, but like people would murder Kevin Smith for trying to remake Breakfast Club, and I just don't think he's the best director for. But I said my closing
Okay, yeah, on that, yeah. Let's move on to the next closing argument.
With Flash Gordon, I think Kevin can nail the script absolutely, and the art style and the look of it. Yes, it may be a little iffy, but I think he can still do a good job on it and make it look like a. I think if Kevin was doing it, he wouldn't make it as a modern remake, nor would it be a shot-for-shot remake, but he would still try to make it look like 1980s, like not, oh, let's use all this new CGI. He would want it to look like it did in the 1980s, colorful and vibrant and not so CGI, this is space. That's my closing argument.
As I said before, my argument all along with The Breakfast Club, it's not just a classic film. It is one of the classical films from the 80s. Kevin grew up with this film. I mean, he grew up cutting school, having dead uncles to go watch films in the theater with his dad. This is one of the films he would have watched. These movies shaped who he was and how he went about making movies later. So much so that in his later films, he brought in Shermer, Illinois. He brought in things from these films. And when you break down Breakfast Club, as I said, it's a bunch of stereotypical teens sitting around having conversations. They have the music scenes as they're dancing around and the big music to end it. Kevin's big on music. He's big on conversations. And I think with his love and appreciation for this film, I don't know if he'd receive hatred. He receives hatred for anything he does. That's the glory of the internet. You can hate on anything. But I think he would give it the best remake out of the directors there today. And I think it would be an amazing job with him.
All right.
Such a bold claim to end on.
Brad, what are your thoughts?
This one's tough. Looking through here, Breakfast Club, a budget of $1 million, made $51.5 million in the box office. They Live, $3 million budget, $13.4 million. So you're still talking about 4 times in their budget. Flash Gordon, $20 to $27 million, but only made $46.5 million. So they only like doubled ish their box office number. So if we're looking at a movie that could potentially make a decent amount of money, I think Flash Gordon is probably, you'd have a better opportunity to surpass the legacy of $46 million, basically doubling their money, than you would They Live, which 4 times their money, and then Breakfast Club, which 51 times their money. So if you're going to go look at it that way, that'd be one statistical fact that you could tie into there.
Awesome. That's really interesting. This was a tough one. It started off as a really tough one. And then your closing arguments, I think, really made it a lot easier for me. So, like, I'm sorry, Brian, I'm going to start with They Live. Like, that one just didn't seem to really resonate. It just seemed like the way that your argument was set up, it felt more like a personal choice than what made more sense for Kevin Smith to be directing. And like, I just didn't see those reasons connecting well enough as like to why he should be remaking that film. When it came to the other 2 films, I could definitely see the arguments as to why like he would be a good choice for doing both of them. I definitely like the arguments to where you made the connection with The Breakfast Club and how it's so similar to his strengths when it comes to those long conversations and like really getting into like the characters and things like that. But I also really like the arguments when it comes to Flash Gordon and looking at some of the campier sides of things that Kevin Smith has done. I'm looking back, thinking about just like the random like superhero scenes that we do see in some of the different, films that he has done already. But for me, in the closing arguments, I think what sealed the deal was actually when we're talking about The Breakfast Club and you're making the comment about how, that's what he grew up with and things like that. And when I'm thinking about remakes today, a lot of the remakes aren't usually being remade for the generation that it was originally for. It's being remade to catch the interest of a younger generation and things like that. So for me, it almost seems as if having Kevin Smith remake that film, he's too close to it, especially since that's his lived experience. And he wouldn't be creating it in a way that would be for a newer generation. But just like what Brad was saying when it came to like the financial side of it with Flash Gordon, not only would he have the opportunity to surpass that legacy financially, but I think with the experience that he has and his vision and his creativity, he really could recreate Flash Gordon in a way that not only would bring in the crowd to love Flash Gordon before, but excite new generations who haven't had the opportunity to watch Flash Gordon previously. So I'm going to give this point to Morgan, despite the fact that you weren't as confident about it in this round.
Nice.
Good job.
All right, so we are moving on to round 3. And we're looking at what, 10? Are you trying to do 10 minutes for the next 3 rounds?
Just have Brad will ping you, have the private chat open so he can be like, we got
it's open.
This is fun though.
Yeah.
All right.
I
So
think if Morgan
3,
didn't have a movie he had to go to, I'd be down to make this 3 hours.
Okay, we have a time limit. I know we have a time limit now. Okay.
I would too. I totally fucked up on the date. So
no, you're good. And we could cut out the speed rounds if that's necessary.
But. All right, round 3. A Clerks remake happens. Besides Kevin Smith, who should write and direct?
And Morgan, you start this. Cool.
So, had I got my way with my original choice for the last round, I think this answer would have made a lot more sense. But my pick for who would do a good job of making a Clerks remake would be John Hughes, because I think John Hughes is known for movies about. He's made so many movies that are about teenagers and for kids. Well, not for kids, but for teenagers. And I think it would have the same. Do I think it would have like some of the comments and stuff like that are in Clerks, the original Clerks? No, I don't think he would make the same kind of comments if he was writing it. But if he was just given full creative control over it, I think stylistic wise, he could totally nail it, and he could totally nail the dialogue between Dante and Randall, because just like in The Breakfast Club, they have moments that are, they're emotional, but they're not like so emotional. He breaks it up with, comedic parts, especially like when I was trying to pick, I thought of The Breakfast Club a lot because it's also my original pick. So, that scene where they're all sitting in a circle and they're all kind of talking about their problems and why they're there. And then you get to, the character, Brian, not Movies Are Dope, Brian, the Brian in Breakfast Club,
very easily confused all the time.
Yeah,
were you the Brian in Breakfast Club?
Yeah. Brian's only there because he didn't do it. It's not because he really did anything bad. And he's always worried about his grades. Like, and everyone kind of like teases him about it. They're like, that's not really like, dude, you're smarter than the rest of us. Like, there's no reason you should be like this. And I think moments like that would work great in a Clerks remake / reboot. I don't think John Hughes would need to do a shot-for-shot remake or even a modern day take on it. I think, obviously there would be modern elements to it.
All right, sorry to interrupt, but we could get into all this, but maybe we should do opening arguments really quick.
Okay. My pick, and when I think of Clerks, I don't think of Clerks on its own. I kind of think of it as if they're doing a remake reboot, they're going to incorporate more of the Clerks lore to try to make it stand on its own film. So you have the Clerks animated, Clerks 1, 2, and 3, and some of other Kevin's works. I chose Mel Brooks. And Mel Brooks has an unusual style of comedy. You can see that reflected in a lot of Kevin's works, like how Kevin approaches things such as racial slurs and thoughts at the time in Clerks 2. Mel Brooks can definitely handle that. Let's look at Blazing Saddles and what he did there. And Kevin loves to do fourth wall breaks occasionally. Mel Brooks is the king of fourth wall breaks. So I think he would make a really good take on pulling a Clerks type film. And we'll go more in depth when we start the debates.
All right. My choice came honestly because of what Kevin Smith has said. He said this person is the funniest person he's ever known. He's someone who has a dark sense of humor. We can see this. He has also had some struggles, some darker struggles to lead to that dark humor, similar to how Kevin had that anger from being a clerk, and he poured that into the Clerks. He's also a very foul, apparently, because, and this will give away who I'm about to say, because when his casting was announced, Kevin went, "Holy shit, I saw Batman's dick." And that person is Oscar-winning director Ben Affleck, who has shown up in Mallrats, shown up in Dogma, shown up at the last second and gave that movie its heart in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I think he would be really good at giving the heart, directing visually, but also just having that darkness and being able to channel that. And he has such a range. Him and Matt Damon, they both came back for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back to make fun of their own Oscar-winning film, Good Will Hunting, and turn it into a cross between a horrible action film, and Forrest Gump. And recently the Dunkin' commercials. He hasn't lost that out there comedy. So my pick is Ben Affleck. He can win Oscars but has no qualms about doing some stupid comedy. Yeah. And then, wow, John Hughes seems like such a good choice, but I would argue he is too pure for Clerks. He could not go down to the dark depths, the gutter, where Clerks could really strive. I mean, even in 16 Candles, which has some very questionable stuff, it's still played as an innocent thing. So I like it, but I just personally, I don't know that it's Clerks. And I do like Mel Brooks. He does good commentary on racism, like even the guy tricking all the stupid white racists, who's the black sheriff. I'm not going to say what he says, but he points his gun at himself and, freaks them all out. It makes it fantastical. It makes it satirical. It makes it tongue in cheek. It makes everything that made people think that Clerks 1 was a masterpiece, and this subtle commentary on the sludge of just, I don't know, retail. I think it would make it a little tongue in cheek, a little fanciful, a little closer to a Mel Brooks film. It would be solid, but I don't think it would really strike the chord that made it such an enduring classic. Yeah.
With Ben Affleck, I think he has too close of ties to Kevin and the VS universe if he were to make it, it would be too, I think it would be too similar to the original, which if that's what, we're talking about, then sure, that would be good. But I don't think he could make it different, but still the same. Like, keep the same story and make it, different. Most of the movies he's directed hasn't been really comedy movies. And I think that
he definitely has a comedic bone. And Air had some better comedy than, obviously, Argo. He's not going to be making too many jokes in Argo, but I got you.
Right. I'm not saying he doesn't have as an actor or as a person, he isn't funny. He totally is. But I don't think as a director, that's really his style, that it would it's not really the style he would go for. And I think that you were talking about how, John Hughes, he wouldn't be able to it wouldn't be like Clerks because he wouldn't be able to like go down deep as the original Clerks is. But I think if it's being remade for a current generation, most of the stuff in Clerks, I think, honestly, would not fly with the current generation. And I'm one of the few of a current generation that is like, oh yeah, this movie's funny. Like, I don't care what they really say. Like, I get it. And I have to think about the time it was made. If a Clerks remake was to be made today, I don't think a lot of the stuff that's in the script would be allowed. I don't think a studio would personally buy it. So I think with John Hughes, he could make it more it'd still be PG, hard, close to R, PG-13, possibly R.
I looked it up. He does do some R-rated films. I was going to use that against you if he didn't. But so he could make it R-rated.
So I think he could still capture the essence of Clerks, but make it for a current generation. Then Clerks being made in 1994. In 1994, Clerks being made, everyone was, they're like, oh yeah, we relate to this, we get this. But it doesn't have as much of a, we get this to a current generation.
I think we saw that Clerks can still work with Clerks 3 today. And especially since Kevin Smith has literally said that Ben Affleck is the funniest person he knows alive. And someone who's willing to lampoon his own Oscars and then show up in a horrible Dunkin' commercial. I think it can really work.
There's a difference, though, between being a funny person, an actor, and being a person who can direct humor. When you look at what Affleck has directed that has come out in popularity, there may be small moments of humor, but it's not meant to be that kind of film. Like I said, I'm still looking at Clerks as a whole, because you have, beyond just the film, the animated, and Clerks 2 and 3. So I'm thinking that it's kind of a package. When you think of Clerks, this is what all Clerks is.
But we could make the same argument if we'd only seen Red State from Kevin Smith. Red State is similar to the tone that Ben Affleck has done in The Town, and like obviously much closer than any of the Jay and Silent Bobs. So seeing that he can act like that and make a primarily comedy director see him as the funniest person alive, I think it's just not true that he couldn't channel that into his own art if he wanted to. At this point, he's just wanted to direct these films, but with his willingness to be in the Dunkin' commercial even so recently, I think it's an easy easy Dunkin' to say that he could do it. I mean, he even got Matt Damon to do it. At the end of that commercial, where he's like, "I'd only do this for you." That wasn't scripted. That was just audio they caught on the sides. So if he can get Matt Damon, who's been in Christopher Nolan films multiple times, including Oppenheimer recently, to do a Dunkin' commercial and get a comedic performance out of that, I think he could do it. I think it's proof that he could do it.
A less than a minute commercial is a lot different than a movie, a feature.
It's harder. It's harder. Hemingway said, if I had more time, I would send a shorter letter. It's harder to make something small that works.
But it's a couple of jokes is a lot easier than a whole movie full of jokes.
But again, he said it's the funniest person he knows alive. So that's through a lifetime. And that included, I mean, not to get vulgar, that included showing Kevin Smith his dick. So there must have been so many jokes before they got that comfortable. Or Kevin just makes everybody comfortable immediately. I don't know. But, But
I don't think we've seen enough of Ben Affleck writing and directing wise in a comedic tone as we have of him. People can be funny and act funny, but sometimes that just doesn't translate well over to their own art. So I think it would just be a hard, I don't think it would fully work. And with Mel Brooks, I have to say, I don't want to leave this out. With Mel Brooks, while I think he does do a lot of good commentary, like Brian said, a lot of good commentary on racism and stuff like that. I don't think that if he was making Clerks today, it would be the same. It wouldn't give the same vibe. It would. Most of Mel Brooks' movies are for not a young generation. I think if we're thinking of a remake / reboot, they're going for they want to bring in the old audience, but they also want to bring in a new audience and introduce it to new people. So I think John Hughes would be good because it can still be people know, still even people my age have seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club. Sadly, not enough of them have seen Blazing Saddles or Clerks or, good Ben Affleck movies. Somehow, most kids my age have not seen Good Will Hunting. I don't know how that's possible, but they haven't. And I think John Hughes has enough of a reach that people would still, even my age, would be like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh, the guy that did Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I've seen that movie. That was funny. I like that. I'll see this.
Well, honestly, your points are actually coming against us and helping Brian here, because our two directors had hits, and their main popular films were in the 80s. 80s was early.
And that can still work, but I just don't think it's the vibe. And again, Oscar-winning writer, director who's so funny, he can make it work. He fits in Kevin Smith films so easily. He takes the Kevin Smith dialogue and makes it sing. If he wasn't a good fit for this material or this vibe, he would not be such a good actor. And again, he's got no... this will be my closing arguments just to make sure we keep on track. But I think the fact that he has no problem making fun of himself or even his Oscar-winning films, especially like egos with the Fast and Furious movies or insecurities about being seen as weak, Dwayne Johnson, Vin Diesel, Jason Statham, to have that ability to make fun of yourself, to make yourself the laughingstock and be fine with that, that's something Kevin has always done. He's always said he's the first one to make fun of his own films. And if you can get Oscars for dramatic works and still at the same time be so funny and be willing to lampoon yourself by that, and again, he's not to make this too much, but like he's had some dark times. He has has that experience to be able to connect to those topics or to those levels. I like both your choices. I think they would make interesting films. That's no doubt, but I just think it would be too fanciful in both directions. And that's my closing argument.
I think John Hughes would be good for it because we've seen in a lot of his movies, the tone is very similar to Clerks, especially Breakfast Club. It has a similar tone as in, it's a group of people that are different, but they're the same, and they have trials and tribulations, but they persevere, and I think he shows that very well. Ben Affleck, on the other hand, I don't think would be. It's just I don't think he has as much of a current reach. I mean, he did a Dunkin' commercial with Charlie D'Amelio, a TikToker, and I don't think if you told someone my age, like, oh yeah, that guy that was in that Dunkin' commercial, they'd be like, yeah, that Dunkin' commercial was fucking stupid. I'm not seeing that movie. For people that find humor, that understand humor, like Brian, Mark, me, we're like, oh yeah, that's funny, we get that. But kids my age are like, no, that's dumb. I'm not going to see that. Do I think the audience from the original Clerks and fans of if the either directors were to do it would come out? Yes. But do I think the current generation would come out for it? No. And I think with John Hughes, they would somewhat. I don't think it would have as big of a reach.
Just imagine John Hughes getting so dark to have someone fuck a dead guy. And I can't imagine that.
Oh. Well, I think both of you hit on a very strong point that Ben Affleck is close to Kevin. They've been through films together. Kevin lives in his house and still refers to it as Ben Affleck's house. And John Hughes, I mean, Breakfast Club similarities, which we discussed that round, how close they are in their content matter. The question is for a remake, someone who's going to remake it, take the material and make it their own. Do you want something that is going to resemble what's already there, or something that's going to breathe new life into it, bring a different audience, and inspire interest in going back to the original to see what it's inspired on? Mel Brooks would do that. He's shown he can make stuff modern world. He redirected, it went straight to streaming, but we finally got History of the World Part 2. He partially directed and took a part in that. That was his own work. He can do things in this modern world and still have his edge. And I think he would introduce a great new audience with his flair on it, and it would be have a feel like it, but be something new, something interesting that remakes off the original.
Has Mel Brooks ever done something so restrictive location-wise? I shouldn't be helping you, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. He's done so much. It's honestly right now going through my head is Men in Tights.
Brad, this is when you would look something like this up.
Well, we're at that time anyway.
Yeah, Mel Brooks. So we'll get there, but Mel Brooks did a lot of his movies on sound stages previously. So it's pretty. I would consider that pretty restrictive as like a location setting.
Being locked into story-wise.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So to kind of round everything out here, John Hughes, while has done some kind of lower brow humor in movies such as Weird Science and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he's got a couple jokes, some lower jokes. He also was in the writers, one of the writers of the National Lampoon series. He is very much dead and has been for the last 15 years, so I think it'd be really hard for him to direct another movie. Matt, I'm sorry.
But that has no effect because it's all based on the arguments.
I clarified this before I answered. I said, can it be a dead guy?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck has only directed so far 5 movies, all of which have been in the thriller or drama section. So he's yet to prove himself in any kind of comedic directing debut, datorial. Also, Kevin Smith has a very open relationship with George Carlin, despite his passing. He's talked about him at great length that he is very much a fan of George Carlin, draws a lot of inspiration. So I believe Mel Brooks would probably fall into that same category of comedic, stand-up comedian kind of thing, where he has done some stand-up stuff. So there you go.
A real stand-up guy.
He is.
So for this one, okay, no, I don't think this one is that difficult for me. I will say that a lot of Morgan's argument like worked against him, especially when we're talking about like just how we're going to engage and connect with like the current generation and such. Because when you're talking about, Hughes and goodness gracious, who else are we talking about? Mel Brooks. So we're talking about Hughes and Mel Brooks. And both of the arguments for them, it's like I actually am not sure whether or not they are really able to connect on that generational level if we're talking about, bringing back, this film or recreating, the Clerks film. Whereas with Ben Affleck, I think he would have the potential to do that, to connect with this generation. And I did want to bring out one point because Morgan was arguing that, individuals his age wouldn't be interested in this. But at the same time, I don't think Clerks is necessarily for your age group. So we would be talking about college students who this is actually for. Because college students actually did really appreciate Ben Affleck's commercial. Like they were talking about it all across campus. So I don't actually think that, your generation is necessarily who the Clerks film would be for. It would be for that slightly grittier generation that's kind of like finding themselves. And I feel like that's also kind of where John Hughes may lose a little bit. Because you're talking about how it would be okay for him to soften it up a little bit, but that's kind of changing the tone of the film itself. And I'm not sure if that's something you necessarily want to do, take away the grittiness to make it softer, because now you're changing the entire population that it's for. It wasn't meant for the softer college kids. That was meant for the grittier, students who maybe didn't even go to college, who were doing all the other stuff. It wasn't meant for the Breakfast Club kids necessarily. Like when I talk to students or people who have watched both films, it's definitely a different set of individuals. So, hearing those parts of the argument and thinking about what would have the best outcome with the generation, because that's the argument y'all kept bringing up, is like what would end up having the best reaction from viewers. I think a remake by Ben Affleck would end up going over the best. So I'm going to give this point to Brian.
Yay. And good job. We planned to give the other points to other people before giving all the points to me, just so people didn't think this was... I needed to make that joke. I know it's going to hurt me in the future.
But that was a good one.
I love that. You guys made great choices.
Random knowledge. The character in the Duncan commercial that he plays is based on the character that he was in Clerks 3, Boston John. It's the same character.
Wait, he wasn't. Oh yeah, Clerks 3. I was thinking reboot.
Yep.
Never mind. Wow.
That's the character he was in the Duncan commercials, Boston John.
Oh, during the auditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
All right, ready for round 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, we tied. Cast Jay and Silent Bob in another film or franchise. Oh, this should be fun.
I'm gonna say I think I'm gonna win.
Mine is actually, I hate to say it, but the work was done for me. The matchup and the meetup has already occurred in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I would put the two guys into How High. They have the dream. They're already talking to Method Man and Red Man. It's similar kind of humor, jokes, and I just think they would mash up really well in that world. And like I said, in reboot, they already had the characters introduced, so they've already set up that starting.
In your dreams were theirs. Because I think truly, like when I thought of this, I was like, holy shit, this is perfect. And it's a John Hughes film. I think the perfect franchise to put Jay and Silent Bob in is Home Alone. Because not only have they proven multiple times they're willing to beat up some kids in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, they go to all the internet commentators and beat up some kids. In Dogma, they beat up some kids, and Jay says, "I knew they were just kids, but we kicked their fucking pubeless asses." I think they'd be perfect in Home Alone, and not only that, it would improve it, because when they realize that they were that what they're doing is horrible to this child who's been left alone, I think they would just melt. They'd melt. They'd apologize. We'd have not only the emotional moments with the neighbor in the church, the older man, and then afterwards with the mother, but they would become his guardian angels. No need, and they wouldn't come back as villains in Home Alone 2, New York. That movie, by the way, in the original ending of Clerks 3, there's like a 10-minute sequence that's going to be over the credits of them stomping some guy's face in. I think that would just be 2 hours of Kevin McAllister going past the guy in the lobby who asks where the front desk is, and then they'd just be 2 hours of kicking his ass. His name's Donald Trump. That's the only sequel necessary for Home Alone, but I think they would be a perfect replacement for our home invaders. And yeah, we'll get more into it, but that's my opening argument. Home Alone.
All right, Morgan, what is yours?
Okay, so mine is Star Wars. The reason I said Star Wars, I don't think it would be Jay and Silent Bob. It would be like Jay and Silent Bob if they were droids, or if they were like aliens.
Jay and Silent Beep.
Yes. And we kind of see,
which one?
About it, Jay and Silent Bob are already kind of like C-3PO and R2-D2. One doesn't talk very much. The other talks a lot. One's kind of big. The other's pretty skinny. It's pretty similar. So I think they would be droids that hang outside a cantina.
So would they replace C3PO and R2D2, or would they just be some
No,
random droids that? How long are they in the movie?
I was just saying it's kind of similar.
Mhm.
We've already seen that it's kind of similar. They already have some similarities.
So they'll just be
transition well.
They'll just be in the film for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like if how they're in Clerks for 10 minutes total. Around 10 minutes. They're not in it a bunch, but we see them enough that they become a character that people know.
Okay.
All right.
All right, that's interesting. Mark, what was yours again?
How high?
Okay. How high? I mean, a No Method of Red Man. I think that would just feel like Xerox copies. Like too many duos almost. How it more kind of lessens it, kind of like ninjas in movies. The more you get, the less effective they are. That would be interesting, but I don't. How would that improve the film?
Well, you're looking at it. I mean, they fit into the role. I mean, you have two drug dealers who would be hanging out with two druggies. They're potheads. They love smoking pot. They would have an adventure together, just like the scene with them in Reboot. They're in the car. I mean, I know it's a dream sequence, but they're in the car having a conversation. They're actually, you actually get some emotional moment via the language is a little more crude than it would be in other films, but you have that connection, and they could do that there. Home Alone, I see would be great, but I don't see where two drug dealing people stomping the heads of kids would really.
No, that's the sequel. That's the sequel. We don't even need to. But like,
even how do you add to the drug dealing aspect? Because that's one of the things known for Jay and Silent Bob. How do you add the drug dealing aspect and really do anything with the film? They don't enhance it. They actually take away from a little bit of it and makes it less child, more adult. That's one of the draws to Home Alone.
There's those robbers are adults. They are like cruel. They are ready to go in and just at a certain point kill Kevin McAllister. It's dark, so you could have not only. Like, they have the wet bandits. You've got Jay and Silent Bob already on police radar because they're drug dealers. They could be stealing stuff to fuel their drugs. They could be stealing parents' drugs. And, like, pitch this, or imagine this. When Joe Pesci comes in and gets the flamethrower on his head, he goes, ah! Now imagine Silent Bob. We got silent comedy. You've got Jay as the taller, more aggressive one who's ready to go after people. With the, I could see him going through the basement and getting his shoes, his socks, and his feet stuck on the tar that Kevin McAllister leaves. Heck, we could even put it so that he doesn't just touch the tip of the nail and fall backwards, but he could actually step on it, have like a quiet place moment. But again, you've got that willingness to be aggressive towards kids, but also that heart that I truly believe that if like Jay got hit on the back of the head with the shovel, or just the guy comes in and is like, hey, he's about to hit them. He's like, oh, Silent Bob, what have we been doing? We've been hunting a kid. And then just their hearts melt and they go to be like his protector. Like, we all know that, they'll look after Millie forever. If she was a little baby when they had met her, they'd be like her guardian angels. I honestly think it could make a really good, and with John Hughes still directing, oh man, that would be good. And we've seen that Jay and Silent Bob can be PG-13 if they need to be in certain projects. But
all right, what about Star Wars? Like, let's give me a little bit more on that one.
So they would still be pretty much drug dealers. I don't know what kind of drugs they'd be dealing out in a galaxy far, far away, but space
Spice.
drugs, okay?
Death sticks and spice, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if spice is a drug in Star Wars.
Still $15.
It would still pretty much be the Jay and Silent Bob, except instead of being humans, they'd be droids, and instead of being in New Jersey, they'd be on Tatooine.
So they would just be moving their characters, their same characters, to that alternate universe.
It's the same characters. It's just a different universe.
Okay.
This is Moss Eisley, where the scum of the earth live. Snoochie boochies, snoochie. I don't think it fits as well as you might imagine. If they were replacing R2D2 and C3PO, maybe. But
I mean, I don't think they really fit with Home Alone either. I don't know how many parents are going to take their kids to see a movie with drug dealers. Nor do I think it would still be rated the same rating.
Well, let's argue that out in your closing argument.
Okay. They were going to kill Kevin McAllister in that film. So that's already pretty dark. You just add some slightly softer drug dealing guys. It's not the worst. Plus, if you add the drugs into it, that just even explains more how they could forget a whole kid. If you put it as they're stealing from the parents as drug supplies. But, I mean, I just think it makes it even better. Instead of just having some villains who get locked up, you've got some villains that can turn good and have a redemption arc themselves and add another heart moment before mom comes back. And
Mark Morgan.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting which one you chose, Mark.
How High?
Okay.
The reason I get is because it is too much of a perfect fit for their characters and what they are. I mean, once again, the whole thing of How High, you're two drug-dealing drug heads. They go through the movie, they become closer friends, and they achieve their goal. Jay and Silent Bob, they are two drug-dealing drug pushers, which are now on the wagon, thanks to George W.
Okay, so that means they're not doing drugs?
According to one film, they're not, but they're still selling.
Gotcha.
They're not doing, but they're selling.
Okay.
Which, Method Man and Redman, there are their buyers. You just have to throw in the time, and you've got a perfect film all the way around.
Okay.
It feels like Jay. Sorry.
I think I understand how they would fit in, but I think it would just be like if it was just a cameo type of thing. That's different. But if we're saying they're a pivotal main character, I just think it would be too much. It would be like, I feel like people would be like, it would be too much of, here's a duo that sells drugs, here's a duo that buys drugs, and it's kind of like what Brian said, that just more doesn't mean better. I just think it would mesh, but it wouldn't mesh well.
And Jay and Silent Bob works so well when everyone hates when they're the outsiders, when they're like, oh, what? Who are these? Get out of here. When they kind of stick out like sore thumbs. But
so I will say that for this round, it actually is it's been a pretty easy one for me. So unless, Brad, you have something like really pivotal that you think you want to share on this one. Okay. So I'm going to just jump right in with my decision on this one then.
The only thing is I got John Hughes didn't direct Home Alone. He wrote it and produced it, but Chris Columbus directed it. And yes, there is spice in Star Wars, very similar to like the Dune spice. And Jay and Silent Bob reboot is when they go sober, 2 months sober after getting busted.
Oh yeah, because they went sober in Clerks too, but then okay.
Yeah. So
for this one, because we are recasting Jay and Silent Bob in another franchise, or casting Jay and Silent Bob in another film or franchise. And with all of them, there was only one that felt like it was supernatural, and it wasn't like creating a parody or putting them in a position where they were kind of changing who they were in a sense. Because even when you're talking about Home Alone and you have them in that scene, it really doesn't make sense for drug dealers to be robbing this house and doing all these things with it. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense for their characters. So taking Jay and Silent Bob there, it just doesn't really mesh to me. When we're talking about Star Wars, their character fits, but it feels more like a parody. It's just another like Family Guy type thing. If we're talking about putting their characters into a film where they feel natural and you can actually have a story built around it, I think How High actually does make a lot of sense, because there's nothing to say that they have to be in the entire How High film. It could be that they're only in there for 10 or 15 minutes. But I feel like that insertion there would be a lot more natural. You're not having to change their character. And it feels like they're actually contributing to the story rather than just being a presence there that is a parody of their characters from a different film. So I'm giving that point to Mark.
Amazing. All right. So either we won't have speed round because we got a deadline, or if I get the next point, then and Morgan leaves, then we'll have speed round. But I'll play Will's video at the end of this, no matter what, because I do appreciate him helping out. But
awesome.
And Morgan's got his scratchers. Did you get the lottery?
I have my list of what I picked next to me, so I can look at it.
All right. Please give it.
All right.
Don't tank this just so we can have a speed round.
Don't tank it.
I got a decent one.
All right, we can knock this out in 9 minutes for sure. All right, round 5. All right, pitch a sequel to a Kevin Smith franchise. A sequel to a Kevin Smith franchise. Go.
All right. My pitch is one I've had for a long time internally. It's one I wanted to do, and to actually channel Star Wars, we're going to call it Clerks Episode 4 Drawn Together. It's an animated movie, either in the Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy cartoon movie or the Clerks animated, whichever is allowed. I don't know if the animated would be allowed, but Kevin Smith wrote a movie and Jason Mewes directed it called Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy cartoon movie, but it would be called Drawn Together. It's after the third one. We get to have Dante as a ghost the whole time who can communicate with Randall, and it's in 3 parts. One, we open with Randall being interviewed to kind of recreate Kevin's meeting of his wife with he's being interviewed by Sarah Silverman, who was his original love interest in the original Clerks 3. They have a video call and she's like, "What's this ass to mouth? You got to get crazy. That's so outdated. You got to go ass to mouth to veg," which is something that I'm taking from Pete Holmes, his Bad Man sketch. But then they hook up. They have part 1, which is La La Man, him going to Hollywood and exploring all that. Then part 2 is called the 3 Smodketeers, or the 4 Smodketeers. It's Millie, her friend Soapy, and Jihad, and Dante Jr. Dante had a child with Veronica, and his name's Brian, because Brian O'Halloran, not me. And then they just go on they're babysitting the child while Veronica's at work, and they go on a whole adventure. And then at the end, we're going to channel the original Clerks 3 script again, which opened with a hurricane. We'll call it Hurricane Home, where Randall comes home with Sarah Silverman's character, and just New Jersey comes together as a whole community. It's a huge, heartwarming end. And we get one more adventure with Dante the whole time as a ghost, Elias back during parts 2 and 3, Elias and Blockchain, who I'd never dare forget his name. And that's my pitch. Clerks 4, Episode 4, Drawn Together. Morgan?
Okay, so my pitch is for I didn't want to do something that was like already been talked about, like Mallrats 2, stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. So I did Chasing Amy 2, aka Chasing Banky. Okay. So I went deep into this. This was my favorite question. And I drew parts of Kevin's life like he did in Clerks 3. So, years after the events of Chasing Amy, Holden and Alyssa cross paths once again when their mutual friend, Banky, goes missing. They come together to find him. During so, they rediscover old feelings and unravel the true meaning of friendship and get some closure from their relationship. When Banky goes missing, nobody knows why. Holden and Alyssa are drawn back together into each other's lives because Banky, without Holden knowing, has reconnected with both of them. Well, Banky was still with Holden, but just not as close friends as they were. But Banky reached out to Alyssa, and they became friends too, again, without Holden knowing. He shared his identity and mental health struggles with both of them, which makes his sudden disappearance even more concerning. Holden and Alyssa team up to find Banky, embarking on a journey that takes them to all their familiar places, from Chasing Amy to unexpected places from both of their pasts as they follow clues and interview old acquaintances. They go through pivotal moments and unresolved issues from their shared history. Their search forces them to confront their complicated feelings about each other and the choices they made. They uncover Banky's diagnosis of DID, dissociative identity disorder. Realizing the depth of his struggles throughout their quest, they rely on each other for support, reigniting a connection that never truly faded. The investigation leads them to a secluded cabin where they find Banky, who has retreated to reflect after his recent diagnosis of DID. The reunion is emotional and raw, filled with honest conversations about their past and present. And it turns out that Banky's disappearance was what they needed to bring them all back together, and they help Banky start the process of healing.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, I feel grossly underprepared compared to you two for this. That's awesome. You have scripts ready to go. What I chose, and it's going to be ironically, Brian and I went the same vein again. We just both went to opposite ends. I chose to do a sequel, so to speak, for Clerks, but it's actually a prequel. I want to do Clerks the beginning. We have the story already from Clerks to Clerks 3 of Randall and Dante. We have their friendship. We have them working together. While they admit they truly love each other, whether platonic or more, as some of the fan theories are going online. I'm not getting into all that. But they have a true loving relationship. They have a bond. They know each other. But we don't know how. We don't know how they first got together. We don't know how this friendship started. We don't know where, we know some of it had to do in high school. In Clerks, we see them attending the funeral that, thanks to Mallrats, we know of Julie Dwyer, and she died the day prior. So they attend that funeral. They know her. How did they know her? Did they have class with her? I want to see the story of Dante and Randall meeting. Probably hating each other at first, then becoming as close friends as they are to carry us through the rest of these. I cry every time I watch Clerks 3. When that song hits and he passes, I still tear up. I want to see the beginning of the relationship that takes me to that emotional level and see what brought them to there.
Oh, man, prequels to stuff are never satisfying.
Oh no, yeah, go ahead.
Even Furiosa, which might be the best sequel, just didn't feel like it channeled or really tapped into the original magic of Mad Max Fury Road. And I know that's not the original movie, but like Star Wars, even the Hobbit trilogy with Peter Jackson, and who Kevin Smith is today, I don't even know if he would want to or could channel the man he was when he made the original Clerks to bring us back to those characters originally. Morgan, holy shit, that sounds like an amazing short film. Because if we're doing it as a whole film and the last part is going to be them finding him and them talking, that'll be like 10 minutes, maybe 20. So I would hate, especially after Jay and Silent Bob reboot, when they have come together and have a child together. I mean, even if you're putting it right before then, it would just be such...
I meant to say that too. It takes place a year or two before Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah, in some ways, that would be similar issues for me with Mark's pitch, where we know what the ending is, and for it to then, at the end, take such a turn to such a heavy topic. I would love if there was a way to have Banky have come in a lot earlier. You could still have him there, since, chasing Amy, it's not an Amy that he's actually chasing. It's turning a whole metaphor into it. If Banky could be there the whole time, kind of like how Finding Dory was we weren't looking for Dory at the end. She's already there. We're going through her issues and her drama the whole movie and extending that instead of it just being right at the end. It sounds like an amazing 20 to 30 minute short film that, just to not take too much away from that, impactful. And I love it. I love where you're going with that. Just, it would feel weird as a feature length film, right? I didn't
really have like that's not like, it's just kind of like the original ending I came up with. And I don't, obviously it's something that I've actually thought about for a while, because I want to do something like that. And it gave me a chance to write something like that. So it was just kind of my first idea, and I just stuck with it.
That is unironically something I want to see. It just, if we're doing as a full length feature, it feels a little unbalanced.
No, yeah.
And Mark, I like it. Maybe as an episode, I'm actually I'd be shocked if they didn't make an episode. I haven't seen all the animated show, or maybe a flashback or something. But just having that Monsters University type of thing, and that's another of the best examples. Still not great. That's me. If y'all want to take shots at me, if we're running out of time.
Yeah, because I feel like well, unless y'all really want to give closing arguments, I feel like this was more so like y'all giving like full pitches of what you think it would be. Do y'all like have closing arguments that y'all want to give on that, or
yeah, you want to just take shots at mine since I had so much time?
Yeah, because I know we need to wrap up. Yeah, we need to wrap this up. Okay,
And
so
my fault.
Oh no, you're good.
So hearing all of the arguments, Brad, did you have something that you wanted to jump in really quickly? No, okay. I loved all of the ideas. When we're talking about what edition would probably resonate with people, I feel like earlier on in our argument, someone had made a comment that the Clerks reboot was essentially like the perfect way to kind of close off everything and so on and so forth. So it seems like extending anything beyond that wouldn't make much sense. And I can understand the arguments too with the Jason Banksy and how it may not quite fit within the realm that it should exist in. But we're talking about like things that happen, like prequels happen. And I do think a lot of people probably have that same question, like, oh, like how did this actually kind of come together? So I think for this one, I'm going to have to give the point to Mark for the prequel to Clerks.
I should have shot at it being a prequel, not a sequel.
That's what got me was the sequel.
I should have said that. I should have said that wasn't a question. Don't do a prequel. But good job. I'm gonna Morgan. Feel free to get out of here. We can come back and do.
I'm gonna donate my point to Brian.
Okay, so all right, we'll continue. Morgan,
Thank you, guys.
we'll do the speed rounds. Love that you were here. I can't wait for your third interview.
Oh,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys. I'll see you
hey,
later.
last.
All right. +1. I'm adding to my name.
So he forfeited the
one homie point.
The what is it? The point breaker.
I'm just putting it as one homie point. I don't even know. All right, we'll stick with this and just put Brad in the beautiful corner here. Just like baby, always in the corner. All right. Cool. Here, I'll get the video ready of Will.
So did you know that they did two different animated, one animated movie, one animated TV show, and two like cartoon style video games?
Yeah.
You know the animated show got canceled after 2 episodes,
And they aired out of order. They aired episode 2 first.
So maybe not animated is probably the best, not the best idea.
Actually, during the Clerks 3 press tour before the movie came out, Brian O'Halloran said if it did well, they had talks about continuing the animated series.
Kevin said in one of the other tours he had pitched the idea, but the problem is that Disney still owns the rights. So unless Hulu picks it up, then they would have to change the character names and the drawing style.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to use stuff like who's the guy that Alec Baldwin was?
Lando. I mean, no, yeah.
No, there was an area. His name's like I forget. Well, here, Brad, can you look up Alec Baldwin's character in the Clerks animated cartoon while I play Will's amazing video that he recorded yesterday? Again, this is Will who co-wrote the speed round questions.
Hey everyone, this is Will Ball. I'm helped with the speedrun questions. I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith's. Been following him since around Chasing Amy days. Really fell in love with Chasing Amy. Went back and watched Clerks and Mallrats and been following him ever since. His movies mean a lot to me. And I'm happy to be here and happy to do the speedrun questions.
Nice. But yeah, Will is incredibly kind. When I went to the Clerks 3 premiere, I was super nervous. He showed up right after me. I was the first person to say hi. I was too nervous to even say hi to him or to anybody. But yeah, he's super, super nice.
Are we ready for the speed round then?
We are ready.
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm kind of excited for this. So essentially, I'm going to ask you the question. The first person to responds, and then the second person responds after.
Yeah, so you say your preferred question.
And then I just say who wins. I'm telling you what happens. Why are you?
Oh, sorry.
I'm telling you.
I thought that was a question. I thought that was a question.
All right. So whenever y'all are ready, let me know, and I will throw out. Are we going to go ahead and do? We're going to go ahead and I guess do the full since it's just us now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me know when y'all are ready.
Do it.
I'm ready.
All right. Your first speed round question: if Kevin Smith were to offer you a chocolate-covered pretzel, would you eat it?
Yes.
Yes. I'll pick no. You got it first.
All right, Brad, can you have a timer up ready for like 1 minute? And yeah, if I didn't say in the outline, this is when you start speaking, the timer goes. And then Brad will be able to mute me when 1 minute, when his timer goes off. And then I'll unmute myself. But yeah, tell me when you're ready, Brad. Don't start until I start talking. That was the rules. I just said it. Okay, Silent Bob. Whether it was a stink palm or not, I'm taking it from Kevin Smith. I'm taking it. I'm going to enjoy it. But one, I trust him enough to not give me a stink palm pretzel. But even if it was, I could say that Kevin Smith gave me a stink palm pretzel. I've said for years that if Channing Tatum ever jumped out of a bush and said, quick, I need to cover your mouth, I would just be like, I trust you. And Kevin Smith, I trust even more. So no matter what, if he's giving me a chocolate covered pretzel, I'm doing it. I'll tell him to give me these Raisinets, go around a corner and do that. I am here. I'm here for it. I love the man. I trust him. He would never break that trust, but even if he did, I'd have a great story.
Okay, Mark.
While I trust Kevin, I trust him a lot. If Kevin is handing me a chocolate-covered pretzel, it's not from him. It's something another fan is giving him. Come on, he's vegan. Vegans don't have true chocolate-covered pretzels. So, and Kevin is the giving type. He's always like, here, have this, have this. I've seen him give his own water at events away to someone who was looking for something to drink. So while I trust Kevin, I don't trust the other person and they're carrying that gave it to Kevin.
If it's a sealed bag of pretzels, we're good. I mean, he wouldn't be giving away unsealed bags of pretzels anyway. He's too trustworthy for that. Plus, if he's giving it away, it's because he's vegan. The only reason you would have to not accept it is because if you were vegan, and I didn't hear you say that you were vegan in the last one, I'm going to eat that and I'm going to enjoy the story I can say no matter what happens.
Why do I feel like Brian's cheating?
Richard's there in the background. How could I be cheating? It's like, what? Yeah. How can I cheat about a chocolate?
Because you gave your answer, you heard his answer, you try to defeat his answer.
Oh yeah, because we have 30 seconds afterwards.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, it's in the outline. It's 1 minute, each of us opening arguments for the speed round, then 30 seconds for rebuttals and continuing on.
I don't like that.
Mark's got 30 seconds now. He gets the last say.
Let's be honest. I mean, give him the point. I mean, look at me. I'm a fat kid. I'm not going to turn down a chocolate covered pretzel anyway. And anything Kevin take thank you.
So I actually have to give the point to Mark because I actually appreciated that like his answer was much more caring. First off, he acknowledged that he was vegan. And Brian, why are all of your answers going to be so hateful and so mean and so like he's potentially doing this wrong thing? You can't be doing that. I don't agree with this. This point goes to Mark. No argument. You can't argue with me. I am the judge. Next speed round question.
I do have a question and also one. Technically speaking, if someone gives up the point, like that supersedes everything.
You can't supersede the judge. No, you can't supersede the judge. You can't give up your point. You can't supersede the judge.
I'll stand by what you say.
It is my point to give.
I'll stand by what you say, but I've literally seen episodes where the judge said I was going to give you that point until you quit.
Well, see, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say you can't give away my point because you're like saying I like the whole thing about people doing nasty stuff. Like I don't like
The stink palm.
Yeah.
He brought up the them doing nasty stuff first. He said if he's giving it away, I don't trust that other person. So that's why.
No, you did. You had the first answer. You brought up stink palm first.
Because that's in Mallrats. And
Again.
chocolate covered pretzel. That's where that came from. Okay.
I'm the judge. I said no. Why are you arguing with me? Like I feel like I should take points away now. I don't appreciate this. Okay, we're moving on to the next speed round question.
I feel like we're getting less away from an objective decider and more like a dictator.
Because of you. I felt that Mark's answer was more caring because he understood like the full parameters of his character and understood too that more than likely if he was being handed a chocolate covered pretzel, that chocolate covered pretzel didn't even need to be considered a stink palm or anything like that. It was more likely given to him by another caring fan who he didn't trust with that chocolate pretzel, so he's not going to eat it. And I appreciate that. I understand that. So yeah, I'm going to go with that answer. I was already on board with you giving Mark that point. So there's your full explanation now, Brian, since you needed a full explanation of why you did not earn that point in that speed question. Are you good now?
No, but we can keep going.
Next question.
The throne has corrupted you.
Pillow pants, fact or fiction?
Fiction.
All right, you go first.
The only person who wanted to make it fact was Harvey Weinstein. He said they needed a post-credit scene that had pillow pants and an actual representation of it, and Kevin Smith ignored that note and the only other note he gave about the film, and we're better off for it. The only person who wants pillow pants to be fact in the real world is Harvey Weinstein. I don't think we can let that man get what he wants.
Okay. Mark.
You had to go that route for the argument. Although being the debater, knowing what we do at Harvey Weinstein, wouldn't he be against the whole thought of pillow pants, giving what he wants and what put him into jail? I mean, but that has nothing to do with whether it's fact or fiction. So, yeah.
That was the note, and I think the movie even takes that angle anyway, understanding that the whole joke is that it is fiction, and Elias is so ignorant of it. So if it's real and Elias believes it's real, then not only that, but he's full like he's right about Catholicism and he's right about atheism, or not atheism, Satanism, and I just don't want to live in a world where women are controlled by little pussy trolls. Sorry, Milan. I don't know if you even know why I'm saying that. Jay is pro women's bodies, and Pussy Troll is anti women's bodies.
I have nothing to add. There's nothing.
At this, I don't even understand this question at this point, so we're just going to give the point to Brian, because you said the most.
Yay.
Next question. Okay, this one I feel like I should be able to give a good judgment on. Best snack for the munchies.
Kevin.
That
he's such a snack.
You got to defend it now. You got 1 minute. Go ahead and start defending.
Well, what's Mark's? What's Mark's before we get going?
I'll stay on brand. Chocolate covered pretzels.
I think it's between chocolate covered pretzels, which is a potential stink palm, or Kevin Smith. I mean, he's the biggest snack of all. I mean, he has exes who still like him as a person after they've broken up because he's so sweet. He's such a sweet walking snack. And if I'm having the munchies, I want to give a with Kevin Smith. I mean, he's a wonderful human being. Nothing sweeter. You can't give me enough diabetes to make me want to take that over Kevin Smith.
Yeah, but if you have Kevin, you want him and his attention all to yourself. You don't want to share him at that moment. You want to have that one-on-one. You give me a bag of chocolate covered pretzels, I don't mind. Hey, here, have some of these, because you're having the munchies usually with someone else. You're sharing in that experience. And if you have Kevin during that time, you don't want to share him. You want him all to your own. So it's not the perfect gift because you can't have that total communal experience.
I think when you got the munchies, all you want to do is gorge and overeat and everything. So you've just made my argument for me. You don't want to share them, even though I wouldn't mind if Jen wanted a little nibble. His wife, he's just so sweet. I want him all to myself. He's a little teddy bear, even in his new turtle in the Entourage movie frame. Mwah. Chef's kiss.
Any counter argument?
No, I think we've said it all. And you're going to show this to Kevin later, Lord.
This is definitely that's definitely an easy one. The best snack for the munchies, like if given the opportunity, would have to be Kevin. Yeah, so point to Brian for that one.
I didn't even think about the fact that you thought his voice was sexy.
I felt like you were using that against me there.
No, I didn't even think of it. I've just been calling myself a snack a lot, just as a joke lately. So I went, hi, Kevin.
Okay, all right. Jay and Silent Bob need a new way to carry their supplies. What new way should they start using?
I don't know any of my ideas.
Let's go with the briefcase.
All right, briefcase. What's your answer, Brian?
Swallowing the drugs.
Oh my word. Okay, Mark, you have 1 minute.
They've already unlocked and showed us the briefcase from Clerks 3. They carry it with a key in it. They already have it on the body. They already have a handcuff type thing to secure it. They already have this in their possession. So with them, all they're doing is making it a multi-use instead of just the key. So it truly opens it up for them. They're not having to do anything else. And plus, it's a lot easier to sell drugs that have not been keistered.
Brian.
In Clerks 1, Kevin Smith had Jace talk about sucking dick so much as a way to signal and get people normalized with the idea of men sucking dick, because his brother had just come out to him recently as being gay. So I think it would just be an elevation of the jokes of Jay talking about sucking dick, that he'd swallow stuff. Silent Bob was a lot bigger before, so we could use that. They're filling up their stomachs, and that would end up having more antics. Having the briefcase, we've already had that, where it's not so new that it would be interesting. It would just be, like you said, multi-use, it's fine, but it's not as interesting from a storytelling aspect. You could have times when the drugs burst and then they need to go to the hospital, like Tucker Max had to do when he ingested a weed brownie with physical weed in it. So many story opportunities. And then you could have jokes about them trying to shit out of the side of the road, like Joyride, the road trip movie through China, not the horror film. And ultimately, it's just all elevating the sucking dick, but it's just drugs. Sucking drugs.
Counter argument.
I don't know where to go on that, honestly.
I don't want my drugs keistered.
Yeah. You already have the joke throughout all the films of the sucking. I mean, it's more geared towards Veronica and that aspect. While Jay and Silent Bob do make them, it's more made towards Silent Bob sucking, not Jay. And if you notice, the one who is always doing all the talking is Jay. So Jay's not going to talk about I sucked it in. It's going to be more of him trying to refer to Silent Bob, which that doesn't help my argument or hurt it either. So I don't know.
Jay mimes sucking Silent Bob's dick, and then they're already hetero life mates. They can be hetero drug sucking life mates. They've been sucking drugs, sucking the same drug. You're just making it physical, making it an edible. They'd call it an edible, and they would finish the day with edibles. And it would be the safest way, because it would be hard for them to get frisked and find the drugs. You could steal the briefcase, you could get it, or at least bust them with it on them. It's a lot harder to bust it if it's inside their bodies. And if they smoked the joints and then swallowed it, they'd be inside each other.
I give you credit for creativity there.
Wait, he saw his. Oh,
No.
you went. Sorry.
Yeah, I went
I
first.
thought you had closing art.
Yeah. Simply because I don't feel that the film would be improved with scenes of an overdose or anything like that. I feel like Mark preserves this point. Everything that you said, like
I was
if I were watching Clerks, and all of those things happened, I feel like it would ruin the film. Like I think that I feel like personally that would ruin the film if you had those scenes in there where one of them's having to go to the hospital from a potential overdose. They have drugs bursting inside of them. They're having to talk about how they can't actually sell drugs because someone has to go shit it out. Like that will take away.
To me.
I feel like that would take away from some of the comedic value that already exists in it and take it down a path that just wouldn't be funny anymore. Whereas with the briefcase, even though it's simple, like I could see them doing a lot of really dumb shit, funny shit with the briefcase that doesn't involve us having to think about someone shitting out drugs.
Having a great trip. But I got you.
Yeah, that's too big of a trigger, I think, for me on that one. I'm gonna have to, point to Mark.
Nicely done, Mark. You won MOOBY Vice. And I had a homie point. Still won. Bravo.
This is black.
Why overdose? What really? That was
story. He doesn't need to die. He doesn't need to actually go to the hospital. But there's so many story potential.
No, you said hospital.
If I burst, no, I didn't say hospital. I said burst. Burst inside.
No, you did. You totally. We will play it back. When you play it back later, you're gonna see you said hospital because that's why I thought of the scene. That's why I pictured them in the hospital bed, and I was like, this is no longer fun.
You could have times when the drugs burst, and then they need to go to the hospital. Yes, you're right. It meant the same thing.
Exactly. See, and this is why you have a negative point right there.
I had a negative point because you didn't let Mark lose that round. And then I was a little mouthy.
Yeah, you're a little mouthy.
But I wasn't wrong either. I didn't hear anything you just said, Mark. I'm sorry.
I said, but you do have your homie point to make up for it.
Yeah,
it all evened out. I was so excited about winning this one and possibly tying, and then having it just be a last one, even with the negative point. That would have been so good. But no one could have. You fought very well, sir.
I feel like you could have said any answer at that point, but you just went. Like if you hadn't described it so thoroughly, I feel like you could have won, Brian, with your last one. But you kept going, and then I kept getting visualizations I didn't want, and it just ruined the film for me. And you should have stopped at the first point and just left it there.
My first idea was the Rick and Morty pilot of shoving it up their ass, right up there.
See, if you had done that and then just stopped and been like, the rest is a mystery, we don't even really talk about it anymore, I would have been like, okay, cool.
You know what?
But now I have a visual of them like drugs bursting, them going to the hospital, them going crazy because they have 2 kilos of stuff shoved up their ass. And now that's bursted. Like that's no longer
it's just weed. But I couldn't have done that since Kevin Smith always talks about how good he is at giving oral. It would have been a disservice to take the brevity route.
You would have got that point.
You can still give me the point that Mark gave up. But no, that was good. Well, thank you for anybody watching this. I'm just going to round this out by saying I hope we get the chance to have Kevin Smith host this. For now, let me get this up. I do want to shout out Chris McGinty, and I'm going to bring up his site really quick. But this is Chris McGinty. He designed his site, chrismag.com. This is his art because he designed MOOBY Fights, which is on moviesardope.com. You can see the designs that he did. It's insane. He came up with so many designs just out of the blue. And if any of them do sell, I do have a profit sharing agreement with him. I mean, but he was just so kind. He was just like, here's the designs. Go have them. I was like, let's make sure if we sell some shit, you get it. But thank you, everybody. Yeah, if you want to round out everything since you were the judge, Milan, or if people just want to shout out stuff before we get on.
We're shouting out stuff. No, this is really awesome. I enjoy being your judge today, even if I may have hurt Brian's feelings a few times. You can. You
didn't hurt my feelings. I just didn't expect you to be like, insolence, Game of Thrones, send him to the cliff.
It is my right as judge.
I was like, well, that'll be perfect. She's so not biased.
And I was not biased at all.
Just
see, if I were biased, you would have won. See, it was a fair fight.
No, I know you wouldn't be biased about that.
Y'all have really great arguments, though. So I will say that y'all have some really good arguments. Even though a couple of times y'all were definitely helping out your opponents instead of really focusing on your own argument.
It's hard when you have a love for the entire subject matter.
Yeah, and also I just didn't want to just drag people through the dirt. Like, well, they're so nice for being here. Also, I gotta say that was not Mark's, the great Mark Lamb. That's something that Kevin Smith said to him, and I put it in. He's not an egomaniac like myself.
Make sure we screenshot that little photo of Brian there so that we can have your +1 homie point and your -1 point. I need that screenshotted.
It'll be on YouTube.
I'm gonna screen capture it.
All right. Well, find Mark in the That Kevin Smith Club, right? You're part of that. So
yeah, I admin That Kevin Smith. I admin the World of Kevin Smith on Facebook, and in That Kevin Smith Club Discord, I'm the only mod other than Will. So
nice. I didn't know that. That's cool. And I know Brad's not going to say it, so Brad F912, follow him because he's been awesome But everybody, thank you for being here. Milan, thank you for judging. Mark,
and you can follow me at XBW Historian since he's not going to say it.
You talked. I thought you represented yourself. They were being quiet guys.
But if you like professional wrestling, you can follow me at XBW Historian and talk about professional wrestling and still history or Texas wrestling.
Yeah. And if you found all this talk, again, thank you, Brad, Milan, Mark. Thank you, Morgan. Morgan has a YouTube channel. They'll be in the description. And also, if you like these Kevin Smith talks, Milan, Brad, and I did review-a-thon for the first. Milan came in on the second View Askew film, but we did Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy. And maybe we'll do some in the future. But yeah. Thanks everybody for watching, listening on podcasts, whatnot. Get some swag if you want it, and cue the awesome people.
Bye-bye now.
Perfect.
Ending. That's how we did in the 90s, son.